The bias of mainstream media is towards sensationalism, conflict, and laziness. Jon Stewart. Greetings. My name is Joseph Yagar. Welcome to another Life in Perspective broadcast. My objective is to provide thought-provoking discussions so you can optimize your perspective on life. Until I came to the US, I paid no mind to the influence of mainstream media. I lived in my own bubble with little care in the world. The first glimpse into the ugly side of mainstream media was on October 19, 1987, when the stock market crashed. The media was all over it to report the end of our world and economy as we know it. A few months later, the next bull market was off and running and left Black Monday as nothing more than a blip on the chart of history. However, the carnage left behind was worn by mainstream media like a badge of honor. Since then, with every crisis, as I paid closer attention, I noticed the pattern of reporting and the carefully crafted agenda that made my opening statement today hit home. Before I continue, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already done so by clicking the subscribe link below. It's free and would be much appreciated. You may also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. By the time the most recent crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, began, my respect for mainstream media was already hanging by a thread, and I'm sure I'm a late bloomer in that respect. I'll make it a point to be as objective in my perspective as I can possibly be until I have done my research and have independently come to the opinion I share with the world. And now, having seen the mainstream media's MO during the recent crisis, I passionately declare to mainstream media that you lost all my respect. Never in my entire professional and personal life have I ever had to spend so many weeks and hours on end calming people down from the sheer panic and fear. My own mother ended up in a hospital as a result of the sensationalism reported on just about every news channel. Unfortunately, I had to stay on top of the news, to watch news channels and read publications to keep up with what those calling me were seeing, hearing, and reading. The pattern of dissemination of the information was so obvious and so carefully manipulated, it was abominable. For example, the news of new cases and deaths was reported as new and exponentially climbing, when all it reflected was what already was and just unknown yet, while the number of those recovering was barely mentioned by a tiny fraction of the journalistic community. Almost every death was attributed to COVID-19, even when there was no proof of that. Doctors coming on media saying what is dictated to them rather than the truth under threat of losing their jobs? If they do, their broadcasts are removed. When there was any good news to report, it was preceded by hours of negative reports, and after a few meager minutes of hope, time ran out, commercials commenced, and the negativity returned to dominate the headlines. It was disgusting. I could be here all day sharing examples, and it wouldn't scratch the surface. To make matters worse, as a result of the sensationalism, every conspiracy theorist trying to make a name for himself is jumping on the bandwagon to declare the end of civilization as we know it. So much verbal artillery is being launched in so many directions, and without regard to people's well-being, the civil part of civilization appears to have long disappeared. Wake up. There is an aggressive agenda to suppress our rights and freedoms and present it to us in a packaging we can't resist. We must stay diligent and stop responding like sheep to this manipulation. Free societies and their constitutions are still the envy of the world, but they are and have long been under significant threat of being supplanted, and we must stop turning the other cheek, think for ourselves, and speak up. Mainstream media and its puppet masters don't have our best interest in mind. I'm certainly not suggesting that every reporter or outlet in the world of journalism and media deserves to be included under this umbrella. Unfortunately, the good ones are a rare breed and are fighting the battle for truth on the front lines. Like most industries in a free society, power and profit come before all else. Advertising revenue and ratings rule the show, and whatever must be done to get more eyeballs on the news, let it be done. Naturally, bad news sells far more than good. Fear of loss drives the vast majority to become sheep and be manipulated far more than peace and gain. It's been scientifically proven and likely will never change. Denzel Washington hit the nail on the head when he said, "If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed." It's no longer about reporting the truth, but rather about reporting it first. Doesn't matter who gets hurt, just sell it. I believe that staying informed is important. However, blindly following the information put before us is irresponsible because unfortunately it is incomplete and by design to produce an outcome not in our best interest. For our own sake, we must gather our own intel and confirm its validity and then determine if the action we take moving forward is in our best interest, rather than react impulsively to what is dished out by design. The First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution states that Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or the press. We are all blessed to still have that freedom of speech. Mainstream media has indeed the same right. But I dare say that abridging the truth for profit and power is not what our forefathers had in mind. Please let me know what topics you would like my perspective on in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.